there's something else that I want to talk about first that I think is just so important.
Great.
Um,
Go for it.
because what we're seeing now is the result of a year of districts doing whatever they did with your kid's IEP, right? And I mean, we've
Yeah.
had crazy situations like a case I'm doing now where the family went to LA Unified in October and the school administrator said, "Oh, we aren't doing assessments for new kiddos." And so he's only just, yeah. So, I mean, only because I knew who to call at the top of the food chain at LA Unified did this family, who, by the way, the father is a lawyer, they were just stuck in this like circular process where they couldn't figure out how to break through. So there were problems at that level, and there were many other problems. I went to a mediation and I had what I consider to be an extraordinary experience with a mediator, in that she was very pro child and she was very, I thought, um, blunt about saying what she thought about aspects of the process. And so the first thing she said was that when the first offer came back, she said to the parents, they always lowball you with the first offer, which I thought was great. Then later in the process, the parents said something, I can't remember what now. And she goes, well, the districts thought that they got a free pass when COVID started, but they didn't. So that's what this is about. There is no free pass. The guidance from the state and federal government following, March 2020 made it clear that there weren't waivers on assessments or implementation of IEPs or other things. And yet we know that that's not the way things played out. So I will tell you all that districts now are trying to settle cases left and right. They're trying to settle them without a filing. They want to enter into a settlement with you to wipe clean the slate from this March until March 2020 to June 2021, because they know they have liability. So it's never going to be a better time than now. Never going to be a better time than now. So, in looking at what happened to your child's IEP after March 2020, and I'm assuming you aren't somebody that was trying to get an initial assessment or had a 504 plan. I can address those issues privately with you as well, but this is just for people with IEPs. The first question is, did they even make contact with you? Because I have one client that got 30 minutes of speech therapy from March 2020 to end of extended school year, and that was it. That was the extent of the contact. So, did they contact you, and how hard did they try? The second question is, did they, notwithstanding the pandemic, implement your child's IEP? Because the guidance from the state and federal government is that they had to implement. Now, um, implementation means that there is, or a failure to implement means there's a material failure in the implementation of the IEP more than a minor discrepancy, and you don't have to demonstrate educational harm. Okay. So the reason this is important is we have a lot of parents that stayed home and were their kids' special education teacher, and so their kids did access the curriculum through them. This case, which I'm going to talk about, says that parents aren't special ed teachers and they're not an appropriate substitute for implementation of the IEP by trained professionals. Anyway, this decision came out April 22nd. It's Orcutt School District. I can share it later if you want. But it turns out that I was at a mediation with the same judge that wrote this amazing decision, 2 weeks later or something. So her decision talks about Orcutt School District's failure to do proper assessments, to implement the student's IEP, and then she even found that there was predetermination, which is highly unusual. We know predetermination occurs all the time, but you can't prove it. When I say predetermination, it means they come in with what Judge Lucier called a take it or leave it offer. Okay, so the student in this particular case had a significant disability and he had great difficulty with screen time, and his mom was trying to assist him and he was assaulting her. That was kind of the background. And I just want to read you a couple things from the decision and then we'll get to the three questions. But it's such a great decision. It's so clarifying on so many levels. And what it means is probably the district didn't implement your IEP during school closure, and you're probably entitled to a significant amount of comp ed. Okay, so here's an example of what she said. The school district argued that the student had access to independent educational activities online that could amount to 300 minutes per day of specialized academic instruction. However, parent was not a credentialed teacher, behavior specialist, speech pathologist, school psychologist, or occupational therapist. She was not qualified to provide the special education and related services in students' IEP. Thus, ORCID did not satisfy its legal obligation to implement students' IEP. Is that clear? Okay, that's point one.
That is, to me, I get it. If their expectation that the IEP was that they lived up to it and it was the parent who was delivering it, then it's no, because you
And
weren't credentialed.
that's a very important point for us because we know a lot of
Okay.
parents did exactly that. Okay.
Yep.
In terms of the student himself, student's attention span lasted approximately 10 seconds to 4.5 minutes. The district's testimony that parent was expected to engage in students' online activities throughout the day to reach the 300 minutes meant she would have had to choose at least 67 activities each day to prompt student through while simultaneously managing his behavior. ORCID refused to consider in-person supports from non-public agencies. ORCID's expectations for distance learning for students did not comply with state and federal laws governing the education of students with a disability. ORCID expected students' family to provide the intensive special instruction and services that it had provided previously to students due to its significant deficits. For ESY, parent informed ORCID that student wouldn't participate in ESY, but requested in-person support. In response, ORCID sent parents several packets of worksheets, but did not provide any supports. At that point, student was hurting himself and his mother on a daily basis. So that's kind of the failure to implement aspect of this case. And I'm just going to keep talking really fast because I want to tell you about.
Can I ask a question though, Bonnie? Because I think it's relevant. In this case, in the IEP, did the student already have a one-on-one aid or specific support in the IEP?
He did. He had
Okay,
SAI, he had SAI support and he had some behavior support.
Okay, great.
But they didn't provide any of that because they said they couldn't. And anyway, so the next issue is really the district assessments. Now, I've seen some assessments out of LA Unified and some other districts in the last 6 weeks that have really blown my mind. I'm not that good at taking an assessment and picking apart what's wrong. I usually like to have somebody else that's a psychologist give me input on that. But I can tell sitting in these meetings, like when you're looking at an IEP and they're taking a private assessment from 2018 to write the present levels of performance, little light has to go on. Okay, so what ORCID said about assessments is a school district's assessments must use sound and reliable measures to yield accurate data to inform the IEP team. The IEP is not a form document. It is constructed only after careful consideration of the child's present levels of achievement, disability, and potential for growth. The failure to obtain critical assessment information about a student renders the accomplishment of the idea's goals and the achievement of a FAPE impossible. Okay, and then it gets into more discussion about how the reevaluations need to be conducted. The school district said, well, the U.S. Association or the California Association of Professional Psychologists said that they didn't think it was a good idea to reassess during the pandemic. And the response to that was that, well, that's fine. It's a sympathetic position, but the U.S. Department of Education has not waived legal requirements relating to triennial assessments during school closure. So I'm seeing like pieces of triennials or triennials skipped. Be on the lookout for all of that with your kids' assessments. Okay, I'm really trying to be done because I know that we have other questions. So let me just wrap up here. Such good stuff, though. I just can't help it. ORCID.
It is good stuff. We needed this.
I already talked about this. So yeah, we all needed it. Okay, last issue is really predetermination. And I talked about that a little bit. They can't come in with either a generic distance learning plan, which is the only kind of distance learning plan I've seen. I'm sure you guys have generic distance learning plans and not individually tailored generic learning plans. And they can't come into the IEP meeting saying take it or leave it. That's what the case talks about. They talk about predetermination and why that seriously infringes on parental participation in the IEP process, which makes perfect sense. And they talked about how if the distance learning plan isn't being implemented properly, or the way you're implementing it isn't successful, if the district doesn't want to send public providers into the home, they can use private providers. So those are some of the gems in this very brave decision um, that we got. And there should be something in there for everybody after the last year or so.
And tell us again where this decision came from. This a California decision?
The California Special Education Hearing Office decision, and I'll send it to Shannon after the program, and she can circulate it.
Okay.
Even if you're not in California, and even if the law is slightly different, I think it's safe to say that these issues occurred in all the states, and it's a good way for you, like a checklist for you to go through and see what was done properly and what wasn't in your own child's IEP.
Absolutely, absolutely, and sets a precedent. So, super cool.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people need to know this. Now, it doesn't tell us, though, in each individual case what you will get, but you, but the assumption is that you will get something to help your child get caught back up. Correct?
Our clients are getting compensatory education. So the way that works is we negotiate an amount of money that the parents are going to pay out for private services, and the district reimburses them. Okay.
And
I
those
think
private services might be tutors, might
speech, Professional Tutors of America, behavior therapy services, social skills or social recreational opportunities. Did I say speech? Yeah. And I mean, I think that deals are better if you file for due process, but we're doing deals without a filing, and parents are still getting, $15,000 or $20,000. That's not nothing.
not nothing. Okay. So this is a reason why people should be contacting support for this, whether that's an advocate or an attorney. Obviously, if they are in Southern California, you said if you're an LAUSD client, you guys are comfortable in that arena, but you do other districts as well. You have colleagues that are in Northern California, and correct me, in New Mexico as well, still or not?
No. We had an attorney in Nevada. He left. So now we're down to Arizona and California.
Arizona, that's the other state that I was trying to think of. Okay. And if people wanted to get in touch with you because they're like, Bonnie gets it, and I'm in Southern California, I'm in LAUSD, what's the best?
California, period. Okay.
Oh, California, period. Okay. So if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You just go to the website, you fill in the free consultation form, you request me, and that'll be that. It'll get taken
Okay,
care of.
and Traven just put that up on the screen, but for those of you who are listening in podcast, it's specialeducationcouncil.com, specialeducationcouncil.com. And for people who are not in California, you have a recommendation of where to go to look for an attorney or an advocate. Bonnie, tell them.
Yeah, good remembering, Shannon. God. COPA, Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates, www.copa.net. Yeah, thanks, Traven. Yeah. So you can find an attorney in your state, and most attorneys are going to give you a free consultation. That's not unusual at all. So that's a win-win situation for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to commit, but you can get some more information. And during the last year, I had probably the same kind of feeling that you did. I had kind of a gut feeling like, this isn't right, but I don't really know how to frame the issue. It was an uncomfortable period of time, but now looking back, we see what happened, and we understand what the cases are worth, and they're worth, like the October kiddo, the one that asked for an assessment in October and they just stalled him. He missed 5 months of education. That's not trivial. That's a good case.
Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.